Hey everyone, it's Jenette Goldstein, otherwise known as Vasquez from Alien, People's Foster Mother from T2, other films where I kill or be killed. And I'm listening to Don't Go Out There podcast. I hope you are too.
In a world where zombies, ghosts, serial killers, and vampires all exist, it's Nico, Brian, Mike, and Dustin, and they are all that stand between you and the films that could end the world. Welcome to the Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Podcast.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Review Podcast. Just want to thank all our fans and listeners. I really appreciate the continued support. I'm super excited for the interview we have. We are joined today by an absolute legend of the business, known for her amazing roles in Aliens, Terminator 2, Lethal Weapon 2, Titanic, Star Trek. The list goes on and on, spanning 3 decades. Please welcome the amazing Jenette Goldstein. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Wonderful.
Very well. Very well.
We're just going to jump into the questions now. I know you can't talk about the beginning without aliens, but before we get into that, we would like to ask, was acting always a career path you wanted to go down?
Yes, it was. Very early, I loved pretending. I loved reading and pretending and seeing movies. And my folks loved the theater, so they would always take us to plays. And I mean, that was just like so magical when the lights went down and the curtain went up. I mean, good Lord. And then when I got into high school and I realized that you could, study to do it, and it was a profession, and there were drama schools and that whole thing, I was like, that's it. That's what I'm going to do. So.
Absolutely. And with Aliens being your first role, I mean, can you talk about the audition process for such a massive sequel like that?
Sure. It was my first role on film. So I had been, like I said, theater was always my first love.
Right.
And so I had not planned to go into film and TV. It was interesting because I grew up in Los Angeles, in Beverly Hills, actually, in the center of film and TV. And not that I had really many opportunities, but I definitely wanted to go to New York and work on in theater, and also go to London. That was also my goal. So I had been in plays, not on Broadway or anything like that, but I'd done small, theater roles around New York and London. And this was one came out of the blue, and they were looking for American and Canadian actors who held a British equity card, which is very difficult to get.
Right.
And I had just gotten one. And I was like, wow, okay, I'm going to, write in, give my picture. I didn't even have an agent. You just always think, well, if they advertise it in the local paper, the actor's paper, the job is probably already gone. And, it kind of one thing led to another, and I kept coming back, and they ended up giving me the role, taking a big chance on me. So I'm forever grateful to Jim Cameron and Gail Ann Hurd.
It's such an iconic role too, and that death scene in the vent is one of our favorite parts of that movie. I mean, can you talk a little bit about shooting that scene? I mean, was it difficult?
Sure, it was. Well, it was difficult in that they had built an actual vent,
right,
to climb into. You'd climb up some stairs and you'd get yourself into it, and you'd have to crouch. And, in one way it makes it easier to act because you don't have to pretend that there's a ceiling above you and it's a tight space. It's there. It's all there for you. But, you're crouching and you're holding a gun, and then the blanks are the dummies are going out and they're smacking the wall and smacking you in the face. And there was a couple of takes on the close-up on me doing that where I was grimacing each time it hit me. And then Jim said, okay, I don't think she'd grimace. I think I know it hurts, but you're going to have to stop showing that it hurts. I was like, okay, I got it. So I do remember that.
We had on the late Bill Paxton's best friend and Philip Granger on our show. He gave us some insight into his life. Can you just talk to us a little bit about how it was working with Mr. Paxton, since you shared so much time on screen with him?
Oh God, Bill, I swear. I mean, from the moment you meet him, everyone tells you he's just the kindest, sweetest. He was so helpful to me as being a complete newbie. He started with no training on movies at all, and on the first day on the set, when I was terrified and I didn't even know. I mean, I knew the word. I've seen films. They say action. I knew that, but I didn't know what back to one meant. I didn't know like how you a master and how you put it together. And I told him that, and he said, "Look, don't worry about it, darling. You're gonna earn while you learn while you earn, just like I did." And he was, he just had that kooky sense of humor, but I mean, smart. My God, he kind of would hide that behind the sort of good old boy thing, which he was, but so well read, and art and theater and film, and just a generous, loving person taken far too soon.
Oh, yes, ma'am, absolutely. If I'm not mistaken, on Aliens, the Marines went through sort of a boot camp for the film so you guys could, build a bond together. Can you talk to us about that? There's any cool stories you want to share?
Well, sure. I mean, knowing what little I know about real boot camp, it was not boot camp, but it was something that was, I don't want to pretend it was, but as far as an actor goes, it's very unusual to get a whole 2 weeks to rehearse and prepare and work out together and be trained we were trained on urban warfare there was a stuntman, the late Tipping, who had been in the British forces, the SAS in Belfast. And so we got to learn how to work together as a team and work out and get to know each other. And we were also really fortunate to have Al Matthews, who had been in the Marines, to give us more insight on how real soldiers act,
Right. And obviously from this movie too, I mean, you guys already had the relationship built up with Bill and Lance Hendrickson from
Mm-hmm.
Aliens. Did that make the set of Near Dark more comfortable for you guys or for you?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm sure that was one of the ideas, in the casting, that Catherine Bigelow had, James Cameron had been a mentor of hers, and she'd actually found me because I had been living in London, and I did not have a U.S. agent, and I had just come back. I was living with my mother and wasn't a member of the Screen Actors Guild, and so she got my telephone number from him. Said, "Oh yeah, I got her mother's phone number." But yeah, working with people that you have a long relationship with, there's always all that kind of language and understanding that you have built over the time, and especially gone through 12 years in England on Aliens.
Right.
So we knew each other. The idea of being a family and just having known each other for eternity and all that kind of the horribleness that entails, it was very helpful.
Well, I mean, can you talk a little bit about Near Dark and your experience with that? I mean, I know you guys worked in close quarters for a while on that film. Can you speak to a little bit to that?
It was completely close quarters. I mean, it was a small film, independent. I don't know what the budget was, but it was small, $5 million. I mean, and it was small cast, small film, crew. It was, I forget how many weeks, but it was all nights except for I think the last 2 days. Nights, and we were on location in truck stops, and it was pretty intense. But then again about the reality helping you as an actor. You are playing a vampire, so,
Right.
and you are playing people who are getting on each other's nerves. So we had that definitely to help us. So by the very end, that's like I said, the last 2 days, we shot the interior of the Winnebago, and that was on a set during the day. Okay. And by that time, oh my God, we were just at each other's throats. It was at the end. And I just remember there was one time, so Joshua Miller, who played the little boy, my God, I mean, he's a 12, 13-year-old kid. And let me tell you, him and Bill, by that point, when we were waiting for the shot to be set up, and we're all crammed in there, and they're setting it up. And he has this, that blow up ball, beach ball. And he is banging it and banging it and all finally, Bill just grabbed that thing from him. Like, God damn it! It's like it was absolutely the same as feeling towards Homer. We just used everything we had for each other.
That's perfect.
This next question is pretty special to me because Terminator 2 is one of the movies I remember from when I was a little boy. Speaking of relationships, you've obviously developed a long-standing relationship with James Cameron. Can you talk a little bit about working on just two incredible, huge box office movies of all time in Terminator 2, and of course that heartbreaking scene in the entire movie of Titanic?
Oh, in Titanic. I was going to say heartbreaking scene in Terminator 2. I was thinking heartbreaking for who? Heartbreaking for my husband, Homer. I'm just trying to think. Oh, well, it's funny. It's such a huge movie, but that was both those films, I worked very few days because they were very enclosed, isolated scenes, within these huge films, but worked very intensely. And with Terminator 2, for me, it was great working with, Xander Berkeley, the great Xander Berkeley, who I've worked with before, and just kind of working again on that relationship between, the husband and wife and the foster kid. And then the scene in the kitchen with the knife, the knife and the arm and all that CGI, which no one had ever seen before. So I didn't even have any context as a human being to kind of understand what the hell was going to happen when I just had my arm behind my back and the airspace. So, you're just basically, a lot of times you're told, put your eyes here, put your eyes there, So, I mean, poor Xander Todd had to deep six that knife. So, but I just had to hold still. Titanic. Oh, Titanic was just incredible. I mean, that being on that set, which it was pretty much life size again, no acting necessary. I always say when you walk down into this enormous boat, you feel exactly, I was terrified, and I had these two children, actors, they were actors, but they were children with me. I'm trying to protect and all these people. And it was really something. It was, you certainly felt the weight of history on you. First of all, because it's the Titanic. And second of all, the character that I played was this, she was a representative of all of these people who were lost.
Right.
And whose story had never been told. It was always this idea of like the men, women and children first, and the brave, men, people of the Titanic. And it, Jim Cameron is very much in telling the story of the sort of working class that he comes from, both in Aliens, which the working title was Grunts in Space, and in Titanic. And he said, it was women and children first of the first class.
Right.
Not down below, it wasn't. And it was interesting because aside from me, all the other, mostly actors, were from the countries they were portraying. So there was a lot of Irish actors there who played the musicians. And they came to me and they were saying, oh my God, this is so, they knew people, relatives who had died and everything. And they're the ones who, when I tell the story, in the script, it says she puts her children to bed. That's all. So Jim had said to me, I think of, maybe you tell them a story, maybe you sing them a bedtimes. Just give it a thought. And a couple of the musicians came up to me and said, you have to tell this story. It's called In the Land of Tir na Nog. And they wrote the whole story out to me and everything, and it was wonderful. And so I just, began to tell the story. So that was, to me, was a really, really, really special role.
That's absolutely incredible. And, as much documentaries and everything that we've seen on Titanic and even this movie, just to even still hear brand new stories that, from coming from that, like you just told, that's incredible to hear.
I was in a convention I did a convention in Belfast, and, they have a museum there, and that's where they made the ship, and people would come, and say, oh my God, my great grandfather worked in the shipyard and on Titanic, and it's great. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I know we're jumping around a little bit, but I've got to ask you about this. I mean, can you talk about your time working on Lethal Weapon 2? It's probably my favorite in the series. I love that movie, and so I would love to hear about your time working on set.
Lethal Weapon 2. It's funny. I think I've only seen the first and the second. I can't remember, but it was fun. It's interesting. That was one where I spent a long time on it with a lot of the cops, and with rigs and worked on rigs.
Right.
And you just sort of hung around and got to know each other. Danny Glover's a wonderful man. He's from Berkeley, and so is my family. And we, I always enjoy speaking to other character actors and where they're from. And I mean, we jokingly called ourselves the ethno cops. You got your black stuff, you got your Italian cops, you got all that. So it was just funny. I mean, the joke is, I can't even remember what my cop's name was when I read the script, but Dick Donner named her, Megan Shapiro as a joke, because I'm Jewish, but I looked, at that point my hair was red, I look Irish. So he was like, you're an Irish Jewish girl. So that's why he named her Megan Shapiro. So it was fun.
And so you're also into voiceover work. Most recently, Star Trek, making your return to the franchise after Star Trek Generations. Can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, the fans for Star Trek, I'm a huge one. I grew up on it. I love it. But there's some of the most voiced fans in the world, no doubt. But you definitely know that about, help with all the franchises that you've been a part of. But can you talk a little bit about, your roles in Star Trek over the years?
Well, it was fun. It was really great. I had never been on, TV in Star Trek. I auditioned many, many a time. And so when I got the job to do the film, the film of Generations, that was really fun. And I do remember, I mean, everybody was freaking out who was there, this was before the film, the TV series. And I remember we're all standing around and we're waiting, and Alan Ruck is, he's the captain, right? We're in the old Enterprise B, and he's sitting on the chair, and he's like, hey, anybody else, anybody want to sit in the chair? And everyone's like, no, we're like, yeah, we're fine. He goes, come on, guys. I know you do. We're like, we do. We all ran, we spun around and all did these horrible Shatner impressions. I mean, it truly, come on. The science officer, you know how it is when they hit the ship, you just think, there's just a guy going boom, and you're just like, oh, you're grabbing yourself and you're pulling yourself back to your console, and I don't know. I just, there's William Shatner coming at me, and I'm just like, my God, where am I? I'm in Star Trek. So, yeah, no, we complete geeks. Everybody was just geeking out. My God, everyone was geeking out. And then it was really great years later that I got to with the voiceovers that I do, they needed a voice match for the computer for Majel Roddenberry.
Majel Barrett, yes, Roddenberry.
Yeah, sorry, I meant Majel. Yeah, of course, that's her stage name, Majel Barrett. And so that was something. So that was great. I forget. I know they're doing. I was just I guess there's quite a few of those, the games and the TV shows and I guess was that a streaming? I forget what that was. I can't remember. I also I do computers quite well, apparently. I did another Star Trek computer voice on some other.
Yeah, it was one of the Star Trek, one of the shorts that they did.
Yeah.
Yeah, but while they're trying to promote these series, so yeah, if you're in there, you may have a lifetime gig as the computer then, because Mudge O'Bara was on there for decades, so as the computer, so.
Exactly.
All right, let's transition from film into business now. Let's talk some business. You're a business owner and have a series of stores, Jeanette Bras. Can you talk to our listeners some about that?
Sure. It's kind of a crazy story. It certainly was not anything that I had planned on. Like I said, I planned to be an actor from very young and took that path. And actually, what I had thought, what happens with lots of actors and especially character actors, you transition or you do write and you direct. That sort of, I taught acting, and I was quite prepared, and I was doing that when I was getting into my 40s, but there was a hole in the market, as they say. There was something that I did not feel that the woman who was, they call her full busted, small ribcage, full bust, was not being served in the American market. And it was one of these things where you sit around and you say, why doesn't somebody do this? And my husband, who also is not a business person, he's a fine artist, just said, why don't we do it? It was just one of those crazy ideas. And, I found it very creative. I love learning new things. It's scary, but I love it. And, we call what we do is retail theater, and really being artists work very well for business. So a lot of artistic people are told, oh no, you're just an artist and you don't do business. But my husband designs the spaces and creates the branding. I create the experience, and it's grown over the last 12 years from a little store where it was just me working doing bra fitting. I'm sorry, it's Jeanette Bras. I forgot to name the business. It's called Jeanette Bras, and it's traditional bra fitting. And the slogan is the alphabet starts at D, and we import very high quality, beautiful lingerie bras and swimwear from Europe, and we fit women in a beautiful space. And we have 5 stores now, 4 in Los Angeles, 1 in Atlanta, Georgia, and we're going to be opening a second one fairly soon in Atlanta. And it's been successful. It's basically giving people what they want, being honest, just doing business.
Oh, yes, ma'am. I'm just going to give a quick shout out to that website for you, JenetteBras.com, JenetteBras.com, if you want to check it out online. And I'm glad your business is doing well. Lastly, just a little fun question that we started asking a long time ago. What is the weirdest thing you've either witnessed or had happen to you at a convention?
Wow, that would be a hard one to define. I love. I mean, you're supposed to be weird at conventions, right? So I would think. Now, I love conventions. I really do. I'm actually going to be in Germany the first weekend of December at a convention in Dortmund, Germany. I'm so excited. It's been a long time, because of COVID and everything. The weird, I don't know, everyone is having just the most amazing time. Everyone's with their people, whether their people are horror or sci-fi or anime. It's a wonderful, you've got fly fishing conventions, and the people who love fly fishing go there, and other people think, boy, that's weird. I think probably I would. But I geek out. I love to see what other actors are there who I'm a fan of, and I go get their autographs as well. Probably, I guess maybe not the weirdest thing, but when I was in London doing a convention, there were a lot of very famous English actors, who had been in Lord of the Rings or Doctor Who, vaunted actors, and they're sitting at the table, and it was just so interesting to see them, behind the table with the autographs, just like everyone else, and they were having a great time.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Ms. Goldstein, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today. Is there anything else you'd like to plug or let our audience know about?
Wow. So I'm just trying to think. Well, that really is, they're going to be in Germany, the conventions. And Jeanette Bras, it's absolutely, if you're in Los Angeles or if you are in the South in Atlanta, come stop on by.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate you coming on.
Sure,
I hope you have well, I mean, all over really, but I'm in Pensacola, Florida, and actually Nico's in Tallahassee. We've got another co-host that's in Tennessee, and one's in South Carolina, so we're all over the place.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, then maybe you get a lot of Southern listeners, maybe, so they'll come to Atlanta.
Absolutely. Hey, we might actually go to Atlanta, so we make that trip a couple of times a year, go to some conventions. So.
Oh, great. Yeah, I'm looking forward to. I went to the first one I went to. There was in Chicago. There was one on I always forget the names, but the big one, the horror one in Chicago. So that was like the first convention, during the pandemic that I went to. And then this one was one that was canceled. I was supposed to go to. So.
Right.
Yeah. Well, anyway, great talking to you guys. Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. And just want to remind everybody to don't go out.